I didn't know it was possible for a heart to stop without dying, but that's exactly what felt like standing there at the altar, watching every pair of eyes turn toward me while my best man walked into the side door with that faint smirk I'll never forget. He didn't even look nervous, just calm, controlled, almost entertained. "She's not coming," he said, his voice flat, too casual for the moment. It was like every sound in the hall died all at once. The whispers, the music, even the air felt thick, like the world was waiting for me to collapse. My hands were still clutching the edge of my suit jacket, trying to keep myself upright. I forced a laugh, one of those dry, desperate ones that come out when your body doesn't know what else to do. "What do you mean, she's not coming?" Daniel tilted his head, like he was studying me. "Claire's with me now," he said. "She has been, for months." He said it like he was telling me the time of day. No emotion, no regret, just the truth, raw and cruel. For a second, I thought it was some kind of sick joke. My best man, my brother in everything but blood, the guy who carried me through my parents' divorce, my first real breakup, my lowest days, the guy I trusted to stand beside me on the biggest day of my life, telling me he'd been sleeping with my fiancée. I remember every detail. The faint hum of the air conditioner, the smell of flowers, the stunned gasps from guests. One woman in the back covered her mouth. Someone muttered, "Oh my God." And me? I just stood there, frozen. It wasn't anger that came first. It was a strange stillness, like my brain couldn't process the data fast enough. So it shut off everything that hurt. I looked at Daniel, then at the guests, then back at him. He looked so damn smug. I think that's when something deep inside me went cold. I nodded slowly. "Okay," I said quietly. "Good to know." I turned to the crowd. "Thank you all for coming," I said, my voice steady, almost polite. "But there won't be a wedding today. Please enjoy the food and drinks. Don't let it go to waste." And I walked out. No scene, no tears, no dramatic collapse. Just quiet footsteps on marble floors while people whisper behind me. Outside, the sun was too bright. The world felt wrong, like I'd slipped into a different timeline. My phone started buzzing before I even reached the car. My sister, my friends, Claire's mother, everyone. I turned it off, checked into a hotel 2 towns over, and sat on the edge of the bed, still in my suit. I stared at the wall until my reflection in the mirror started to look like a stranger. The first tears didn't come that night, or the next day. I didn't feel sad, just blank, empty, but not broken. I think that's what scared me most. It wasn't until 2 days later that I realized something. This wasn't random. It was strategic. Daniel wasn't just my best friend. He was also my business partner. We'd built a tech startup together from scratch over the last 4 years. Long nights, endless coffee, the kind of grind that burns through your 20s and leaves you with either success or exhaustion. We got both. 3 months ago, we'd landed an acquisition deal that was going to change everything. Millions on the table. The kind of deal that made every sacrifice feel worth it. And now, the timing of this betrayal, right before the papers were finalized, felt too convenient to be coincidence. I thought about Claire, about how she'd been asking weird questions lately, about the long hours Daniel and I had spent meeting with investors, about the time she'd stayed late at her own job, coming home with that distant look in her eyes. Pieces started to click together in my mind like gears in a machine. It wasn't love that made her leave. It was opportunity. I didn't sleep that night. I sat on the balcony of that hotel, city lights flickering below, and thought about every choice that had led me here. Every time I trusted him. Every time I believed in her. When dawn came, I wasn't thinking about revenge. Not yet. I was thinking about control, about how they'd taken mine, and how I could take it back. The next morning, I drove home to find the apartment half empty. Her things were gone. A note on the counter said, "I'm sorry it happened this way. I hope someday you can forgive us both." I laughed out loud. A sharp, bitter sound. Forgive them? No, not this time. That afternoon, Daniel texted me for the first time. "Daniel, we need to talk about the business. Don't make this emotional." "Daniel, Be smart, Ethan. Let's handle this like adults. Daniel, we're still partners. Don't screw this up for both of us. I didn't respond, but I did make another call, this one to my lawyer. By the time we hung up, I had a plan. See, what Daniel didn't know was that I'd been building something on the side, a next-gen version of our core product, a system I coded alone during nights and weekends, long after he clocked out. It started as a backup plan, something to keep my mind busy when I couldn't sleep. But over time, it became something far bigger, something revolutionary, the kind of project that investors drooled over. The acquisition company had shown particular interest in it during our meetings. It was the main reason for the high valuation. And here's the thing. Every line of code, every file, every timestamp was in my name alone. Documented. Verified. Unmistakable. For the next 2 weeks, I gathered evidence. Emails, texts, call logs. I printed copies, saved backups, encrypted everything. I found old conversations where Daniel mentioned timing things right before the acquisition, and Claire responded with, "He's too nice to fight back. He'll probably just forgive you." Forgive. That word again. No, they didn't deserve forgiveness. They deserved consequence. 2 weeks later, Claire's mother showed up at my sister's house where I was staying. "She's confused," she said, wringing her hands. "She doesn't know what she wants. Maybe you two could talk." I just stared at her until she stopped talking. "Claire made her choice," I said quietly. "And so did I." Then I closed the door. By the 3rd week, Daniel's patience was cracking. He showed up at my condo at 11 at night, pounding on the door until security dragged him off. He shouted something about me being childish and risking everything. The next morning, he emailed the acquisition company directly, telling them I was having personal issues and they should deal with him exclusively. Unfortunately for him, my lawyer and I had already briefed the executives about the situation. They forwarded me his email with a short note. "Is this the partner problem you mentioned?" That's when I knew my silence was working better than any argument ever could. He was unraveling, and I was just letting gravity do the work. Meanwhile, Claire had gone full victim on social media. Posts about toxic relationships and following your heart. Mutual friends commented hearts and encouragements, as if she was the brave one. The irony was almost funny. Almost. I didn't respond publicly. I didn't need to, because while she was busy crafting narratives, I was finalizing reality. Every document proving that I was the sole creator of the next-gen tech, the crown jewel of our company, was ready. The acquisition team had already reviewed it. My lawyer said it was airtight. The final signing meeting was in 3 days. Daniel thought we'd walk in together like old times. He had no idea he was walking into the execution of his own downfall. The night before the meeting, I sat at my desk with a glass of whiskey, scrolling through photos from the last 5 years. Claire laughing in a restaurant, Daniel giving a toast, me grinning between them like an idiot. I deleted every single one. It didn't hurt anymore. It just felt like cleaning up after a long, bad dream. When I finally went to bed, I slept deeply for the first time in months. Tomorrow, I thought, the reckoning begins. The next morning felt like any other, but underneath that calm was a storm I'd been building quietly for months. When I looked in the mirror, I didn't see the same man who stood abandoned at the altar. I saw someone sharper, harder, the kind of man who learned exactly what it meant to lose everything and rebuild it from ashes. The meeting was scheduled for noon at the acquisition company's headquarters downtown. Their offices were all glass and chrome, the kind of place that smells like money and ambition. I arrived early with my lawyer, Alicia, who carried 2 thick folders of documentation. She glanced at me in the elevator and said, "You ready?" I smiled. More than ever. Inside the boardroom, the executives were already waiting. The CEO, a calm older man named Richard Hayes, nodded as we entered. "Good to see you, Ethan. Is Daniel joining us?" "He should be along shortly," I said. I took my seat at the far end of the table, facing the door. My pulse was steady, my expression unreadable. Every detail of this moment had played in my mind 100 times already, and now it was finally happening. 15 minutes later, the door opened. Daniel walked in, wearing his usual confident grin, though I could tell from the slight redness around his eyes that he hadn't slept much. He was good at faking composure, but not good enough. "Morning, everyone," he said, sliding into the chair beside me. Except there was no chair beside me anymore. Someone had moved it. His gaze flicked around in confusion before settling on me. "What's going on?" he asked. I looked at him evenly. "We started without you." He frowned. "Without me? Why the hell would you?" Alicia placed the first folder on the table. "Mr. Reed, before we proceed, please review this." He opened it, scanned a few pages, and his face drained of color. Inside were full records of my solo development of the NextG software, every timestamp, GitHub commit, patent filing, email, and witness statement. Every line of code that proved beyond any doubt that it was mine alone. "What the hell is this?" he stammered. Richard, the COO, leaned forward. "We've reviewed the evidence," he said calmly. "Mr. Cole has established full authorship of the technology that forms 70% of this company's value." Daniel looked at me, his jaw tightening. "You can't do this. This is our company." "Actually," I said, keeping my tone polite, "the company is ours. The technology isn't. I built it on my own time, on my own equipment, using none of the company's resources. Every log, every timestamp, every patent supports that. You know how meticulous I am, Daniel." He slammed the folder shut. "You planned this. You've been scheming." "No," I interrupted. "I've been working. You were too busy planning your next betrayal to notice." The silence in the room was suffocating. Every executive's eyes were on us, but I didn't care. For the first time in months, I felt like I was standing on solid ground again. Richard cleared his throat. "We are still interested in the acquisition, but with adjusted terms. Based on our analysis, Mr. Cole's proprietary work represents the majority of the valuation. Therefore, our offer to him will remain at the original figure. Mr. Reed's share will be recalculated accordingly." Daniel blinked. "Recalculated? 85-15 split." Alicia said, sliding another document across the table. "Mr. Cole receives 85% of the proceeds. You receive 15 for your contribution to the original framework." Daniel's mouth opened and closed like he couldn't decide whether to shout or laugh. "This is insane. You're screwing me out of everything." "No," I said evenly. "You screwed yourself out of everything." He turned to Richard, desperate. "You can't just—" Richard raised a hand. "It's all legal, Mr. Reed. We verified the claims. I suggest you review the terms with your own counsel." Daniel stared at me, red-faced, furious. "You planned this all along." I met his glare without blinking. "No, Daniel. I just stopped trusting you before you realized you'd given me every reason not to." The meeting continued in a haze of signatures, questions, and quiet humiliation. Daniel barely spoke after that. By the time we stood to leave, his face looked hollow. I shook hands with the executives, thanked them, and walked out without a glance back. The second the elevator doors closed, Alicia exhaled. "You handled that like a surgeon." I smiled faintly. Surgery is the art of cutting away what's rotten. That afternoon, the messages started. First Daniel. "Daniel, you can't do this to me, man. After everything we built." Then again, minutes later, "Daniel, I'll sue you. I'll take you down with me." Then Claire. "Claire, what have you done?" Nathan's devastated. "You ruined his life." "Claire, it was just a relationship issue. You didn't have to destroy him professionally." I ignored them both. Then came the others, the flying monkeys, as the internet calls them. "Mia, Daniel's sister, you've gone too far." Daniel's mom. "After all my son did for you?" Mutual friends. "Bro, this is petty. Just move on." I didn't reply to any of them. Instead, I forwarded every single one of them a small batch of screenshots. The ones showing Daniel and Claire discussing how they'd timed the affair reveal before the acquisition. The ones where they wrote, "He's too soft to fight back." And then silence. The call stopped. The messages stopped. And for the first time in months, peace returned to my phone. That evening, I sat in my empty condo and watched the city lights flicker outside. It felt like exhaling after holding my breath for too long. Everything I'd built, every hour of sleepless nights, every failure, every breakthrough, was mine again, untainted. The next morning, my real estate agent called. "Your condo sale went through," she said cheerfully. "Funds will clear tomorrow." "Perfect," I said. She paused. "So where to next?" "Somewhere quiet," I said. "Somewhere with a view." By the end of that week, my bags were packed. Daniel and Claire could have each other. They deserved the chaos they created. What they wouldn't have was the future they'd tried to steal from me. 3 months passed. The acquisition deal closed successfully. The funds hit my account. And just like that, I was financially free at 32. I stayed on as a consultant per the agreement. But I made sure my department was on a different floor from Daniel's. I rarely saw him. Only an occasional company meeting, where he'd avoid eye contact like a scolded child. Word spread fast in our industry. Investors heard whispers. Clients quietly chose to follow me instead of him. It turns out, people notice how you handle betrayal, and they remember. Claire, meanwhile, had disappeared from my life entirely. Until one night, 6 months later, when her name appeared on my phone again. "Claire, Ethan, please read this." It was a wall of text. Apologies, confessions, self-pity. She said Daniel had left her, that he couldn't handle the stress, that she'd made a mistake, that she never stopped loving me, that she just wanted to talk. I didn't even read the whole thing. I deleted it mid-scroll. I wasn't angry anymore. I just didn't care. That was the strangest part. I'd spent months fantasizing about revenge, about the perfect moment they both realized what they'd lost. And now that it had happened, it didn't feel like victory. It felt like release. I'd won, yes, but more than that, I'd escaped. Daniel's threats to sue never went anywhere. His own lawyer told him he didn't have a case. Personal time projects are legally separate from company assets. He was stuck. And without the charm of his old reputation, new investors weren't lining up to work with him. Meanwhile, I moved into a new apartment overlooking the ocean. I'd wake up to the sound of waves and make coffee without the weight of the past pressing on my chest. For the first time in years, I felt light, and then something unexpected happened. Daniel's younger brother, Evan, reached out. He'd always been the quiet one in their family, the one who stayed out of drama. His message was simple. "Hey, man, I just want to say I'm sorry for what my brother did. He messed up. You didn't deserve that." We met for coffee. He told me Daniel was struggling, financially, emotionally, everything, but there was no glee in his voice, just resignation. "He's angry at everyone but himself," Evan said. "It's sad, really." I nodded. He made his choices. Evan smiled faintly. "You handled it better than anyone else would have." I wasn't sure if that was true, but it was enough. Over time, opportunities started finding me again. Investors wanted to work with me. People respected how I'd handled the fallout, with logic, not chaos. Turns out, in business, integrity is the sharpest weapon there is. I started building something new, a fresh company, a clean slate, no ghosts attached. I even started dating again. Carefully, slowly. It felt strange at first, but it reminded me that not everyone lies, not everyone betrays. There are still good people in the world. One night, nearly a year later, I was back in my hometown for a friend's wedding. Life had come full circle. I was standing at the hotel bar, talking with some old friends, when I heard a familiar voice behind me. "Ethan." I turned. Daniel's mother. Her hair was grayer, her face thinner. I hadn't seen her since before the wedding that never happened. "I don't want any trouble," I said quietly, already turning away. She followed me. "You destroyed my son's life," she said, loud enough for a few heads to turn. I took a deep breath. "Your son destroyed his own life." She glared at me. "He's lost everything because of you, his business, his reputation, his relationship." I looked at her for a long moment. He lost those things because of what he did, not because of what I did. There's a difference. It wasn't like that, she insisted. Claire came on to him. He was trying to let you down gently. I couldn't help but laugh. By announcing to a room full of people that my fiancée had found someone better, that was gentle. Her face reddened. You didn't have to ruin him financially. That was vindictive. No, I said calm as ever. Vindictive would have been taking the entire deal for myself and leaving him with nothing. What I did was protect my work. I let him walk away with something. He's lucky I did. She didn't have a response to that. As I turned to leave, she called after me. He's still struggling to rebuild. You know, are you happy now? I stopped, turned back. I'm not happy or sad about Daniel's situation, I said. I just don't care anymore. That's the difference between revenge and justice. Revenge consumes you. Justice frees you. And I walked away. The band inside was playing something slow and hopeful. Couples danced. Laughter filled the air. For the first time in a long time, weddings didn't hurt anymore. They just were. That night, sitting alone on my balcony with the ocean whispering below, I realized something. Freedom doesn't come from winning or losing. It comes from walking away and knowing you'll never let someone like that define you again. You'd think watching someone lose, everything would feel satisfying right away. It doesn't. At first, it's quiet, like standing in the middle of a ruined city, smoke still rising, and realizing you're the only one left who knew what it used to look like. That night after the acquisition meeting, I went home and sat in the dark for hours. No music, no TV, just the city humming outside the window, and the faint burn of whiskey in my throat. I thought I'd feel triumphant. I'd taken everything from him, publicly, surgically. But all I felt was stillness. Maybe that's the strange thing about revenge. When you spent so long being the one who got betrayed, the idea of winning almost doesn't compute. Your body keeps waiting for another hit that never comes. But the hits were coming for them now. By the second week, Daniel was scrambling. Investors were calling me directly, asking if the fraud rumors were true. They weren't, not on my end. But on his? Let's just say, when someone tries to falsify ownership of a patent worth millions, the digital trail doesn't lie. I didn't have to expose him. The company's legal department did it for me. One of the board members called to tell me that Daniel had been removed from all negotiations pending an internal review. Translation, he was out permanently. And then came the fallout. His LinkedIn update disappeared. His phone number went dead. People whispered. I didn't respond to any of it. Silence was my weapon, the kind that cuts deeper than confrontation. But Claire wasn't silent. She reached out. A simple text at first. Claire, we need to talk. I didn't answer. Claire, I didn't know it would go this far. Please, Ethan. Claire, can we meet? I read those messages like someone reading a stranger's confession. No emotion, just data. By then, I'd heard she and Daniel weren't together anymore. She'd moved out his place. Started staying with a friend downtown. Someone told me she'd been fired from her marketing firm after word spread that she'd been part of the acquisition drama. Apparently, she'd been helping Daniel network by leaking confidential information to competitors. It was minor, but enough to violate her NDA. Consequences have a funny way of finding people who think they're untouchable. I wasn't done, though, because money and reputation are just two layers of revenge. The deepest one, the one they never see coming, is isolation. I started subtly, reached out to mutual friends, the ones who quietly disappeared after the wedding fiasco. I didn't badmouth anyone. I just told the truth. Showed them a few screenshots, a few emails, enough to plant doubt. The story spread on its own after that. By month's end, Daniel was radioactive. Nobody wanted to work with him. Claire, meanwhile, had tried rebranding herself online as a self-growth influencer. I watched her post inspirational quotes between ads for protein bars, pretending her life wasn't on fire. Then one morning, she messaged again. Claire, I'm sorry for everything. Claire, I didn't mean to hurt you. Claire, can we at least talk? Please. Closure. That word, closure. People use it like it's a magic button that fixes everything. But closure isn't a conversation. It's an acceptance that the version of you they hurt doesn't exist anymore. Still, I agreed to meet her. We met at a small cafe downtown, the kind of neutral ground where nothing dramatic could happen. She looked older, not in years but in weight, like the world had pressed down hard and left fingerprints all over her. "Ethan," she said quietly, almost afraid. "Claire." She tried to smile. "You look good." I nodded. "You don't." That caught her off guard. Her face tightened. "I deserve that." "You deserve worse," I said. There was a long silence, the kind that stretches too far and forces both people to confront the truth in the air between them. "I never meant to," she started. I cut her off. Don't say you didn't mean to. You had a choice. You both did." Tears filled her eyes. "He told me you didn't love me anymore, that you were just using me, that you were too focused on the company." I laughed, a quiet, hollow sound. "And you believed him?" She looked down. I wanted to. That was the closest she ever came to honesty. I leaned back, studying her. "You know what's funny? You thought you were trading up. You thought you were moving into a better version of your life. But he didn't love you either. He just wanted to win. That's what makes you both the same. You mistake possession for affection." She wiped a tear and whispered, "Are you happy now?" That question hung in the air for a moment. I thought about everything. The company, the money, the silence that followed. "Not happy," I said finally. "Just free." She nodded like she understood. Maybe she did. We talked for another 10 minutes, about nothing important. Then I stood. "I hope you find peace someday, Claire," I said. She looked up. "Do you forgive me?" I smiled, slow and deliberate. "I don't need to." And I walked out. That night, for the first time, I didn't think about them. I didn't check their profiles. I didn't replay old memories. I just existed, quiet, steady, unbothered, but the world wasn't done delivering justice. 2 weeks later, I got a call from a journalist. Someone writing a piece about startup betrayals and corporate downfalls. He'd gotten wind of the Daniel story and wanted to verify a few facts. I didn't give him much, just confirmed what was already public. When the article dropped, it was brutal. Headline, "From Best Friends to Rivals, How Greed Killed a Startup Before It Sold." The picture? Daniel's old company ID photo. Tired, desperate eyes staring into the camera. By the next day, he'd gone offline completely. No one had seen him. Word was he left the city. I didn't celebrate. I didn't need to, because revenge isn't about noise. It's about quiet satisfaction, the kind that hums beneath your ribs when you realize they finally know what it feels like to lose something irreplaceable. It's strange how quiet life becomes after the storm. For months, I'd lived in chaos. Betrayal, exposure, planning, precision. Every day had purpose. Every breath had strategy. And then, suddenly, there was nothing left to fight. Just silence. The company finalized the acquisition. My name was on every patent, every press release, every check. People started calling me a visionary. Investors wanted to meet. Tech blogs wrote think pieces about how I'd overcome internal sabotage. They painted me as some tragic hero who clawed his way out of betrayal. I didn't correct them. Let them build whatever narrative made them feel inspired. The truth was simpler. I hadn't survived because of the betrayal. I'd survived in spite of it. My lawyer told me Daniel had tried to sue for a share of the buyout, but his claim was dead on arrival. Too much evidence. Too many lies. He didn't even show up for the final hearing. His lawyer quit halfway through. The last I heard, Daniel moved to Nevada. No job, no startup, no one left call. As for Claire, I heard she tried to restart her career, but the story followed her everywhere. The internet doesn't forget. Her self-growth brand collapsed after someone leaked screenshots of her old messages with Daniel. Turns out people love a redemption story, until they realize the villain's just pretending to heal. They both disappeared from the world. I knew, and I finally had mine back. But here's the secret no one tells you about revenge once you get it. You have to figure out who you are without it. For months, I'd woken up every morning with a mission: destroy the people who destroyed me. And when that mission ended, the quiet was almost unbearable. I remember one night, weeks later, standing on the balcony of my new apartment overlooking the city skyline. The lights below looked like tiny embers, little fragments of life burning in the dark. I thought about the man I was a year ago. Hopeful, naive, the kind of man who believed loyalty was a permanent thing. He was gone now, and in his place stood someone colder but clearer. I started working again, but not the same way. I didn't chase meetings or press. I didn't want another empire. I just wanted something real. So I started mentoring young founders, kids who reminded me of myself before the fire. I didn't tell them my story. I just told them the lessons. Never mix love and ambition. Never trust someone who's too eager to stand beside you when the spotlight's on. And never, ever apologize for walking away from people who betrayed you. One afternoon, during a Q&A at a startup incubator, someone asked, "What's the hardest part about being betrayed?" I thought about it for a long time before answering. The hardest part, I said, is realizing that the people who swore they loved you weren't lying. They just loved the version of you that made their life easier. The moment you stop serving that version, they leave. The room was silent. I saw a few heads nod slowly. Some eyes glistened. That's when I realized something. Maybe the pain wasn't meant to destroy me. Maybe it was meant to refine me. Months passed. One morning, I woke up to an email from a venture firm offering to buy my new project, a small AI tool I built quietly in my spare time. It wasn't worth millions, not yet, but it was mine, entirely mine. And for the first time in a long while, I smiled, not because I'd won, but because no one could take it away from me. Later that week, I got an anonymous letter. No name, just a single line inside. "I hope you're happy now." I stared at it for a long time. The handwriting was Claire's. I folded it neatly, lit it on fire, and watched it burn in an ashtray until the paper turned to dust. Then I whispered, "I am." That was the moment it ended. Not when they fell, not when I rose, but when their existence stopped having power over my peace. People still ask me if I could go back. Would I stop it from happening? No, because the man I am now, calm, focused, untouchable, only exists because of what they did. Pain is a cruel teacher, but it's honest. It never lies about who your enemies are, and it never lets you stay weak for long. Sometimes I still dream about that wedding day. The music, the laughter, the smell of flowers, the moment Daniel walked in with that smirk. But in the dream now, I don't freeze. I don't break. I just watch him, smile, and walk away because I already know how the story ends. And in that version, the ending isn't revenge.